myself being one of them. So we wanted to move a couple of the business items up a little bit, perhaps in Ronnie's executive report. Which items were those, Ronnie?
We want to move item 4C and 5B and 5D.
So we'll include those as part of the executive director / business report, and then we can continue on with any other business items after that. Any public comment for items not on the agenda? No? All right. If everyone's had a chance to take a look at the minutes from the July 20th meeting.
I'll move approval.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed or abstentions? All right. Ronnie, go ahead.
Okay, so I'll go ahead and cover item 4C, the status of our efforts with the City of Oakland and Caltrans on the Mandela site. We have been in coordination with City of Oakland, Caltrans, and the West Oakland business owners. On the Caltrans front, we've learned that we must go through a CGC approval process with a conceptual site plan. They have to approve our use of the site in order to engage into a lease agreement with us. So I have, under the business items, an item with BKF Engineering for such scope of services there. The site is scheduled to go to auction in the spring of 2018, and Caltrans has indicated they cannot hold the site for us unless we have received that CTC approval, so we really want to keep this path moving forward. The lease costs are to be determined after the CTC approval. City of Oakland efforts, we have been engaged with them and the West Oakland businesses, and they would like to start engaging the West Oakland businesses and residents on our interest in the site, and they have encouraged us to prepare some materials to demonstrate the benefits of having the bus yard located at the freeway there on Mandela Parkway. The materials that they have encouraged us to prepare are the conceptual site layout, potential landscape design elements, demonstration of presence, hours of operation, and increased presence in the community, lighting design, and security elements, mostly just by us being occupied at the facility there. City of Oakland has also requested that we identify an alternative path to access the site from Mandela Parkway in order to avoid access through Eddy Street, which is in a West Oakland neighborhood that they would like us to avoid going down because it's too close to the residents. So if you recall the last board meeting, we had BKF, we retained BKF engineers to prepare conceptual, or I guess a feasibility study to access Mandela Parkway. The results of that study are in your packet here. There is a feasible way to access the site, but it would require more of Caltrans property to the, I guess, the south.
Have you discussed that with Caltrans?
Not with Caltrans, no.
I mean, it's a tiny little piece of
It's a tiny little
parcel.
sliver, exactly, of the parcel. So if we decide to pursue that, I think the goal is to meet with the City of Oakland again. Once we have our conceptual site design, we have more of a package put together and discuss access elements during the process of BKF reviewing, preparing this feasibility report. I also discovered another route, and the City of Oakland, I have discussed this with them, and they seem to be very supportive of it, and that is going from Park Avenue down behind Target via Beach and Wood, and then to 34th Street. So it's kind of going around and about, avoiding the West Oakland neighborhood, but it would require no major improvements to make that happen. So City of Oakland so far seems very supportive of that maneuver too. So that will be presented in the ideas that we have for the three options for us to access the site. This feasibility study, the access via behind Target, and then the access to Eddy Street, which I think is the least favored by them.
I think you have to make sure Caltrans isn't going to say absolutely no to
Right.
that one option before you have any discussion of that.
Okay, we will do that.
Ronnie, where would it come down behind Target?
So there's a really, I confirmed with City of Oakland that it's actually really a street. It goes.
Is that like Is that like over here?
Yeah, it goes back behind the Target,
Wow,
under
okay.
the maze, and then there's like
Yeah.
a railroad track there.
Yeah.
The road is, not very well lit, and, but I do notice there's a lot of trucking companies using that back street. back
So
there,
would you
it
then
is
come,
utilized.
would the buses then come behind Target? And then
Exactly.
essentially come across, like in parallel with the freeway?
Mhm.
And
And
then,
then make a left onto 34th Street there to access Mandela Parkway.
oh, they come all the way down?
Yeah,
So it says beach on the,
exactly.
on
It
here. I
turns
see.
from
So you
Beach
come
to
in on
Wood, and
Beach,
then, yeah.
They turn on 34th, and they turn on Mandela, and then
Left
they
on
can take a
Mandela,
right.
into the park.
into
Where would
lot.
they enter?
I see.
You say that the behind Target Street is called Park?
Park is where Pixar is, so you go left on Park and then left onto, I think it's Halleck, and then can proceed down. Halleck turns into Beach Street and then Wood Street. It all kind of flows together back there, and then 34th. They would access the site via Mandela Parkway. We would have, ingress and egress driveways.
Are any of those streets over on Park part of the bike boulevard system?
So,
Say?
I think Horton is, I'm not sure how much of Park.
Okay, so
Avenue
let's
is,
just
but
say
we
this.
can-
Just curious.
If we're going through Emeryville to get to Oakland, we need Emeryville not to be any more unhappy with that route than Oakland is.
Right, exactly.
So,
Yeah,
you need to talk to the appropriate people who hopefully are sitting right here.
I guess there should be
Yeah.
on a bike boulevard. There was a thought in the park and plan about a bike boulevard coming from Portland along Beach Street, but that was kind of a nice look at this.
Mhm.
So I'll check around.
Okay, all right, and it would be interesting to see part of Beach Street. It looks rather desolate back there, it's very dark.
Well, look, we just need people to agree on that, right?
Yeah,
Would you, I don't know if you take public comment in the middle of your discussion.
We are welcome.
So I just, as a courtesy to you, because we literally had a discussion 2 days ago, the city of Emeryville will be proposing to the Alameda County Transportation Commission next year. The southwest corner of the completed greenway is at Halleck and Sherwin Streets. And right now, that doesn't take anyone anywhere. And so the plan, as has been discussed in the past, is to actually convert Halleck and the north corner of Beach behind the Target and actually work with Caltrans to create a bike path easement to Mandela so that people who use bicycles do not have to bicycle through the mall,
Right.
which has been a high incident area for us. So we would be looking to retrofit that area you're talking about as a bike route. So I
Okay.
just want you to be aware that we would probably not support having more vehicles on it because we're going to look to take them all,
okay.
just so you know.
So we'll can pursue the Caltrans option even further.
I support Jeff's ask, don't say anything else until you've got
Yeah,
Caltrans on the hook.
right. Okay,
Look, the point really is there are a number of ways in.
yeah.
Yeah, all of them involve some vehicles and some traffic.
Mhm.
It looks like the preferred option is the one where Caltrans has the piece we would need. It's tiny, doesn't look like it's material to the adjacent parcel they control. So you should really press them and say, we don't think this is gonna happen if you don't, I mean, you need to be very clear to them and say, we need this piece to make it work. Oakland's saying it, Emeryville's saying it,
Right,
you know.
yeah, okay. All right, we'll do that.
Two questions, actually.
Mhm.
On the Halleck Beach approach, as it is currently, it's a really tight corner.
Mhm.
So I have concerns, cars fly around the corner. I think someone hit that big boulder there and pushed it into the roadway a while back. There's a boulder trying to stop them.
One of the other challenges you'll have, there are two issues. One, you can't see it from this aerial photo, but under the approach to the Bay Bridge that's covering over the 580 eastbound component there, right north of where all those trucks are parked in the dirt, there is a culvert that connects to Evmud, and it is about 1.5 lanes wide, and it currently has K-rail on both sides because there's no actual fencing. So it is barely, whenever a truck goes through there, no other vehicles or people can get through it. So it is a very narrow road to begin with. And then to Bobby's point, at the corner of Halleck and Beach, which is just off this map north of the Target, there is a left-hand turn there that is only about 1.5 car widths wide as well. There is no parking for that whole area, but people do illegally park there all the time to avoid the Target parking lot, I think. And because that is technically in the city of Oakland, we have no enforcement jurisdiction, and they do not enforce at all. So you would probably have a operationally very difficult time moving a vehicle.
Right, okay.
So Ronnie, I think it'd be very important to define right up front, based on how we operate today. I mean, the future can change, but this is not a lot of use. right? I mean,
No.
there's probably thousands and thousands of cars that go down Mandela. You're gonna have a few vans turning a couple times in the day, you know.
Right.
It's just, but you need to say that, like, how many times would vans come in and out? We're not,
Well, they're asking for that, aren't they?
yeah, but I mean, we need to say that now, because we don't have that level of
Mhm.
demand at all.
Yeah.
Right.
we don't.
So Ron, the path is, the next thing you have to do is the CTC approval, is that?
I think the CTC approval and the City of Oakland,
Right.
CUP approval will probably go in concert together
Okay.
at the same time. But
Because the
conceptually, I think the
documentation-
goal is that we are on the same page,
Yeah.
going forward, we do have a clear path, defined for how we're gonna access the site and what the site will look like. And
Right.
we haven't even done the feasibility, concept for how the site will work. We don't know what our needs are, we don't know how we're gonna fit, there's a lot of columns under there. So in order to,
But Ronnie, we know we can make it work. You gotta draw the drawing, but that's
Yeah.
gonna work.
yeah.
You need to get Caltrans to say,
Yeah.
we'll give you that little piece so that we have a
Caltrans-
solution. that-
Caltrans only move when the CTC approves, is that how it works?
Right, Caltrans won't approve any leases without CTC approval.
Okay.
Yeah,
So I mean, I guess we've got this ad hoc committee that's
right, we've been
working
engaged.
on this. I
Mhm.
mean, I guess what I would say is, put together the information that you need to present to these, the ad hoc committee can review it, and then we can set up some of the meetings quickly with the CTC group and city group.
Absolutely, yeah.
And I mean, it probably feels like that needs to happen in the next 45 days, the most, maybe?
So the challenge is gonna be, and there's an item on the agenda, this is gonna be the following item, so you might as well go into
Yeah,
it now.
sure.
There's gonna be, they need, BKF will need site access, so we've already filled out an encroachment permit application with Caltrans to get on site. Because of the freeway covering the site, there's no clear way to define where the columns are. They need to go out and do some land surveying, so they have, that process could take 60 days, but we're really pushing it. We have good relationships with Caltrans Water Division, so we're hoping that we can get access sooner.
What's
and
the challenge? Getting the access is what might take 60 days?
Getting access, getting the encroachment permit. So we're hoping that we can get it cut back, significantly. We're proposing, and then we've got BKF survey.
Ronnie, you
team,
could walk out
availability.
there now, right?
You can walk out there, but you can't get in the site, it's gated,
You can't?
so, no, it's all fenced in. You can jump the fence, but
How tall is it?
Throw
pretty
over
tall.
throw over the survey.
Yeah. I think that'll increase BKF's budget if they're.
Now, does that site work and schematic drawings from that, is that included in what we've already approved for
No.
BKF?
Mm-mm.
I mean, I would
We've only approved the churning concept.
Okay.
Yeah,
If
feasibility.
that becomes some stupid institutional conundrum, I mean, I'm sure Caltrans has drawings
Yeah.
of their
Yeah.
freeway and their posts
Right, they can just
that they could
adjust.
just send you.
Right, yeah, the CAD files, right.
I mean, we're not building an electron microscope, we're doing a
It's a
conceptual study.
site, yeah, site plan, exactly. Yeah.
Is there okay, so you've got Amendment 1 with BKF.
Amendment 1 with BKF.
And is that site plan something that the city and CTC are gonna wanna see as part of their review of this?
The conceptual site plan, absolutely,
Okay.
yeah. I think that we won't have, we need to have that laid out for them so they know what they're looking at.
Okay. So we'll definitely need to do that.
Yeah. So if you want, we can move, I mean, that's kind of the status of, well, I should also touch on one other matter related to
Sure.
the city of Oakland, but it's not necessarily directly related to the site at Mandela. Jeff and I met with the chief of staff for Councilmember McElhaney and a few property and business owners in Oakland to discuss they were very interested in the West Oakland BART, shuttle to West Oakland BART. And, the purpose of the meeting was to, review the draft routing concept and, gauge whether the business community would be interested in contributing to such a service. We did make an indication that there's a possibility that the ETA may contributing, but made it very clear that the business owners need to find a defined source of funds to pursue a pilot project to run a shuttle service. And it sounds like the chief of staff is taking the effort under his belt, and he's putting out emails to the business owners and trying to encourage participation or just gauge their interest in what they're willing to pay for something. I think it needs to go farther. You need to further define kind of apportionment of cost and how you're going to do that. Also trying to get interest from other property owners in the area. So that's kind of, they're taking that under their wing. We're not taking that responsibility. They're kind of leading that effort. We're just acting as a resource for information of how the Emery-Go-Round got started up.
Well,
and
Ronnie,
then potentially
can we frame it a little? So if you had the one bus going, you know, you showed two, but sort of the minimum kind of normal service that isn't really at all the level of service Emery-Go-Round does, but
Right.
what was that service and what was the rough bottom line to deliver it?
So if you ran one bus during the commute period only to serve that facility, it would be around, I think, $135,000.
Yeah, that's what I recall.
So, and then we, you know, a two bus would be around, you know, 240,000. So then you've got, I layered it to where you have commute service, midday service, and then weekend service, so that they know bottom line for all of that would be 540,000. But they can start somewhere to get something going and see how that works. And I did encourage them to, you know, push for two, because I think two vehicles is way more reliable than a half an hour. A half an hour frequency is just not that reliable, and I think people won't be as inclined to use it as a 15-minute frequency, so. But
Well,
they've
but
gotta
right
have
now
the
they have
money.
a 0-minute frequency.
They've gotta have,
You
exactly,
know?
they've gotta have the money, exactly, they gotta start somewhere, and I think it sounds like that's what they're doing.
So the thinking was, I mean, in Emeryville, Sherwin-Williams has an obligation to do that. So they have some amount of investment they could make if this satisfied that. We don't know if it does. You set the condition, right? But we're sort of saying, if you cobble some money together and get it started, that's how to make it successful. That's what the Emery-Go-Round did. It's very hard to sort of imagine it fully grown out. You know, what we are after decades is very hard to do from the first day, because they don't really have a lot of businesses that have a lot of employees on that line now.
Right.
And those, you know, so it didn't look to me, and the city of Oakland sort of said, well, we're not gonna put money in it.
Right.
We have other priorities. Now, could that change? Maybe, with political pressure by those groups along the line. But so they seem very interested in it, and it's not a big bogey money-wise. And whether this group would contribute anything towards that is really, we don't even need to discuss it, because it's not a real thing.
Right.
But
I just want to suggest the 2-year cycle for the Alameda County Transportation Commission's capital improvement project. The application period would be next spring to summer, and so if the city of Oakland, if businesses do not have enough support right now locally, but they say we want to pilot this or test this for a year or two, they could ask their city rep, who is Dan Calvin, Rebecca Kaplan, or Oakland's two reps to the Transportation Commission, about piloting and giving them the funding to do service for a 2 or 3 year window to see if it's viable, so that they have the lead up time to try to build the support for it, and they can examine whether it's useful or not.
Right.
So that's just an option for you.
yeah, they have the B shuttle that they run, sort of to Jack London. Apparently, it's just they sort of got hooked on government money, and they haven't had much private money behind it, and it's a constant battle for them. They just
Right.
haven't figured out how to make it sustainable, so they're a little anxious about starting more
Right.
unsustainable, you know, that are primarily dependent on government funding.
Right. They're really trying to push the business interests and trying to get.
But I don't see them at the, you know, there aren't enough people there, although if you have 4 or 5 people, they each put in 20 grand,
Yeah.
they cover 2/3, you know,
Yeah.
so.
Definitely. Yep. So that's continuing. That's kind of sums up the latest coordination efforts with the city of Oakland and Caltrans. So I guess we can move to the VFDKF item, which is on the agenda for the Amendment 1 approval.
But so, one more thing, Ryan. I mean,
Sure.
Well, we're only spending the tiniest little time on this with the imagination that maybe someone else would pay for something that we would run, like the Berkeley shuttle, where we actually make some money to defray our Emeryville costs. Not a ton, but it's defraying costs, not adding to the cost. And it would improve service in the neighborhood, right? I mean, we have people that wouldn't mind going to
West Oakland.
West Oakland
right.
BART. But that's really, it isn't to, because we sort of have some stated vested interest in it. It would be nice in my mind, just conceptually, if Sherwin-Williams has an obligation, it would be nice if somehow that benefited the system and not just them, but
Right.
that may or may not be able to happen.
Right.
Benefit of the Emery-Go-Round, you mean?
Yeah,
You know, the conditions of approval we negotiated for that project require that when there's 50% occupancy of residential structures, they have to operate for 5 years, a service that has to be within so many feet of the neighborhood is a community benefit agreement, and it has to go directly to West Oakland. So it's not going to make stops. That was one of the goals.
Oh, really, not on the way?
It's available to all Emeryville residents, but it is designed to give people express service because Emery-Go-Round was not providing that. People felt like going to MacArthur when people in the Park Avenue district area live so close to West Oakland, they have to go back to go around.
So if, let's use a hypothetical, if there was a plan that it said it made 4 stops on the way and that added 3 minutes, they'd have to come back to you to get that approved?
No, I think that we would be able to work that out if the resident group was supportive of that mostly. I don't think that the city would be the problem. You know, I think the goal, the vision with the 5 years, just to be very transparent, is that either Emery-Go-Round would see the utility and interest in this, or DC Transit would, and somebody would pick up the route. That we would basically use the 5 years to market why the demand actually exists. So if Emery-Go-Round wanted to provide that service and include stops along the way, you know, I don't know that there would be, I can't say for everybody, but I don't know that there would be opposition as long as it wasn't viewed as stripping away the community benefit.
And then Lennar could always hire us to do it if it was a direct.
There's nothing that prohibits them from hiring or contracting you to do it now.
Okay, so Amendment 1 was an attachment that's handed out today. We received the proposal letter just after sending the packet out. So the proposal letter is included here. The proposed fee breakdown is attached to the back. This is a spreadsheet. And you'll see the task 1 is to perform the survey, the site investigations, and then task 2 is the site design and circulation study, and task 3 is a landscape concept plan. The total fee would be $38,436. I should note that I have made calls to about 5 other planning firms and have received 0 responses. So I think that the industry is busy right now. I'm just not receiving a whole lot of response on this. I received another contact yesterday, so I'm happy to go and try to see if I can get another proposal from them. But unfortunately, the firms that I'm reaching out to, the community that I know of, just are not being responsive, including the firm that did the concept initially here in Wright.
I can't speak for Jeff, but I know that with the civil engineers that we talk to, that's pretty typical.
Is it? Okay.
Right now, the civil engineering world is pretty busy.
Yeah.
Jeff's suggestion about talking to Caltrans for their plans for the area, which would cover the first task. I don't know if Caltrans is capable of pulling up their plans for where the columns are, the topography. But that might be worth pursuing. I don't know if the engineers would give any credit for it, but
Right.
who knows? If we come up with most of the documents for task 1.
Right.
Might
Yeah.
save it.
I would also suggest probably putting some sort of completion schedule in here with them.
Okay.
So that, I suspect that site design, once they have the information, is probably a 2-week project. If they really hustle. And,
Right.
maybe 2 weeks from, to kind of gather all the data and figure that out. I mean, it shouldn't take them longer than probably
Right.
6 weeks at the most.
Yeah.
From the time they're able to get access to the site. But I would stipulate that into the agreement.
Okay.
Question on task 3, landscape concept plan.
Mhm.
Will that take into account the landscaping on the median that we were talking about earlier, or we're going to put in that turn pocket, so that we can either improve the sight line for bus drivers pulling or leaving the yard?
We didn't get into the details of the median landscaping, but we can potentially have them add that in.
Well, I would encourage everyone to think, this is just to get us down the road with approvals.
Yeah, I
right?
think this will be refined as we move
All of
forward.
this, we are so far from having something we would actually execute.
Right.
We need to get on the path, and you just enter. I don't know why the heck the CTC would need to approve a parking lot, because those have been under the ramps forever, but I'll assume that that's true. I mean, does any other Caltrans potential lessee have to do that?
From what I was told by the new representative, and again, I mentioned this last meeting, I've gone through about 3 reps on this parcel. This is the first I've heard of the CTC approval being required.
And how are they gonna auction their site if everyone needs to have already gotten CTC approval?
Yeah, I don't know if they hold the auctions and then conduct that process or not. So what I'd like to do is, once we have the concept plan together, I'd like to actually engage Mark Weaver, the director of Caltrans right-of-way division. I actually worked with him in the past on a project, and the council member, McElhaney's chief of staff, also has a good working relationship with him. And so I thought we might want to just go straight to Tim and have this conversation to where we can make this work out for all parties. And I think that might be more influential than working with the rotation of people that are in the, this division of right-of-way at Caltrans. So they've been responsive, it's just, we just need to better understand the path forward, and every time we engage, it seems like there's a different, task to achieve, and I want to make sure we have all of our ducks in a row.
This guy Mark Weaver be the one that ultimately makes the decision.
Yeah, he's the director, so he would be the one to kind of influence decision
Is there any reason
making,
not
the
to
process.
reach out to him now and just kind of say, hey, we feel like we're hitting the runaround a little bit, can you provide some clarity? I mean, sure feels like, if ultimately, and I'm okay authorizing this because, if everyone else is, because they're not gonna start right away anyway. In the meantime,
Right.
maybe you go to Mark and say, look, we've talked to 3 different reps over here. It's the first time we've heard that CDC's approval is required before we can even talk to Caltrans about a lease. Can we, we're also trying to figure out how this is gonna work with the city of Oakland. Can we kind of move to, not necessarily a streamlined path.
Right.
We're not asking for a special.
No, but a
treatment. I would
defined
say that
path.
At least tell us what we really need to do.
Right, yeah. Yeah, I can.
It just feels like I'd rather do that now than start spending money, and then he goes, well, actually, I didn't really need to do that.
Right, yeah. Okay.
I just have a question for my benefit. When you say auction, that I hear lease, are they auctioning off like a leasehold?
Yeah. What you mean by auction is just a public
It's a public auction for
offer
lease.
or opportunity,
Right.
sort of.
They open it up for people to bid on leases or potential lease costs.
Okay, and do you know if there's anyone else who's competing with you right now?
I don't know, and from what I've heard from the chief of staff at Oakland, he's indicated that he doesn't think anybody's interested in it. It's just been sitting there forever, so there's not going to be competition. Hopefully, that's not the case, but it'll just be us basically. And as a matter of fact, we were trying to get ahead of the auction, and we were trying to just engage with Caltrans on this agreement without them going to auction. Just let's.
Well, and that's, I
That's
think,
that's part of trying to figure out why they don't just, if
Yeah.
they're sitting on it, why they don't just negotiate with you.
well, that's why I
Right.
think talking to Mark Weaver now makes
Yeah.
a lot of sense.
Right.
Rather than waiting around.
Yeah, no surprises at the end, right?
Yeah.
So I guess the question is, we want to move forward with this. If we need to get, when's our next meeting? October?
October.
I mean, we should all vote on it and talk about it, but.
Can we have a tentative approval if they actually need it?
Yeah, I mean,
Well-
maybe. I also don't think there's necessarily gonna, if you don't even have the encroachment permit yet, it's gonna take at least a couple of weeks to get that from Caltrans just to get onto the site. And then if they do some work and we get a site survey out of them or something like that.
Well, I think, to have a dialogue with various people, we'd like something like that. So whether it's required by Caltrans or
Might
not,
as well do it, yeah. that's
it's
good.
just whether we have to spend 16 grand to figure out where the posts are, which is kind of crazy,
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think we want, well,
If we get it,
Yeah.
ultimately, this is not money that's not well spent. Well, I would move that we approve this, and at the same time, no, that's what, at the same time, I would ask you to reach out to Mark Weaver.
And I'll also look into the Caltrans topography,
Yeah.
see if they have anything on the freeway.
Yeah, Nate, what do you guys think?
No, I was gonna ask, can you remind me how we got to the not to exceed 43? Yeah.
It's the total proposed budget was to 5,000 that we'd already authorized the
Okay.
last go around, yeah.
Which was for the turn-in.
the turn-in pocket, yeah.
Okay.
So are you waiting?
I'm going to second yours.
I was going to say.
All right, great. You got that, Ronnie?
Yep, thank you.
So all those in favor of moving forward with PKF and also having staff work on reaching out with Caltrans? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstentions? No? All right, great.
All right, so the next item that I'd like to cover is item D, a discussion on the city's effort to collect the outstanding PIBID assessments. Vice Mayor John Powers is here, so you all know this. We've been in kind of coordination with the city, and John's kind of taken it under his wing to kind of pursue the outstanding PIBID delinquencies, which is great. We've had these discussions over years about those properties that necessarily we have not been, the city has not been successful in collecting the PIBID assessments going back to 2001. And I know John could probably provide a more thorough update of kind of what's happening on that front, but I do know that letters have been sent out to all those property owners showing the outstanding balances that were due. And I know that Cindy Montero has been engaged with a few property owners. And the city would like us, this TMA board, the board's feedback on whether we would be supportive of the city negotiating penalty portions of the outstanding PIBID collectibles. The PIBID-based assessments would still be due, but there's a significant portion of that that's also the penalties and the late charges of them not collecting over the years. So they're asking for the TMA board's feedback of whether or not they would be supportive of giving the city the discretion to negotiate a settlement with these property owners on the penalty portion of the PIBID revenue.
I have a question first, because I would support waiving penalties, and mainly because of some confusion in this, that it depends on who the property owners are. For example, the school district, I don't think ever paid. I got a strong lecture last night at 10 o'clock about adding taxes to schools. But I said that's the law in the PIBID. But I think, so do we have a list of private owners, the federal government, post office, and the schools who make up the delinquent accounts?
Yes.
We do.
Yeah.
We do have a list. And so I would be happy if you want me to provide updates on that list.
Yeah.
So in terms of the most recently approved PIBID, just a couple clarifications. There's a handful of individual residential property owners on both lists that are delinquent, small amounts of money, but those are being handled because they're automatically part of the county tax assessor's role. We do not have to collect them. The county tax assessor collects them. You ultimately get your pay that way. There are 7 properties, or I should say property holders, who have, a couple of them have multiple sites, who are exempt from being directly billed by the county for one reason or another. So the post office is a great example. We cannot, the county assessor and the county of Alameda cannot directly tax them. They have to be billed. And under the Streets and Highways Code, property-based improvement district tax, regardless of tax exemption status for many other things, is actually applicable to every property owner, with one exception being if they can demonstrate that they do not receive any benefit, right? So that there's no benefit. And so put one of them to the side for a second to discuss separately, which would be AC Transit. So we have, I regret coming into this role in transportation as the ACTC rep, but I've taken an interest in making sure the TMA is successful, that the city's past practice was not to actually send bills to a number of these for different reasons I've learned.
Right.
Some people had apparently oral agreements that they shouldn't do it. A couple people felt that they couldn't legally do it. So there's a number of backstories. But we've looked into the law, Cindy and Ronnie and the city attorney, and I know your attorney's looked at a couple of things for us too, and we agree that they should be billed, and I have asked the city to engage in that process. We have several property owners who, upon receiving certified request to pay reached out to us and want to become compliant as quickly as possible. So we have a number of them. The Avalon building is one of them, and I'm not really sure. That's the only one I don't know why they get non-directly billed through the county. I'm not quite clear on that one. Them and a couple others who are in the lower delinquent category for commercial properties are working with us on coming into compliance. We originally believed PG&E was not in compliance and that they were exempt. We originally had 8 on the list. It turns out PG&E has actually always paid the PBID. So we thought we had a larger delinquency for you than we actually do. PG&E is compliant. They produced proof of that to us to our satisfaction. AC Transit is contesting their obligation to pay on the basis that they receive no benefit because all their employees are entitled to free rides on AC Transit buses to the transit yard. So there's no person who works there would ever need to use a free shuttle. So we have not made a decision on that simply because I did not want the city, I know we're at a public meeting, but did not want the city to adjudicate that issue until we had resolved all the other issues. And then the post office is going to be probably the most challenging one in the end. We've not received the correspondence back from them. And then the other one.
Did you mail your correspondence to them?
Yes, which means it never got to them.
Yeah, exactly.
To the black hole that is Emeryville Post Office. And it's honestly my least favorite place in the city. And then the last one is the school district. And the reason I came and have an interest in this item today is because the school district has remitted to us for your benefit $42,000 for fiscal year 16-17, and they have now budgeted going forward to always pay. So you will get that sum annually going forward. But as Ronnie noted, I think you just alluded to, Alan, Andrew, the last 12 to 13 years when they had various pieces of school district property were never paid. And they have a very large amount due. And I've had some preliminary conversations with the superintendent of the school district, and we are in the process of one member of the board, himself, myself, and the city manager having not a negotiation, but a discussion about what could be done so that we could bring back to each of our respective elected bodies some sort of framework for an agreement whereby, as collector for your benefit, we could find a way to create a repayment plan to collect from them the amounts due, which would be obviously better than nothing. And what our city attorney told us, and I believe Ronnie's confirmed this with your attorney, is that actually, as a lawyer, I actually thought, well, we're an agent for you, and so you should be able to decide. But it actually is not that way. Yeah. It turns out that we gave you the PBID benefit, and so you are just a third-party beneficiary. And our attorney said it's our total decision what we choose to do in terms of collection for your benefit. But in the interest of this being a partnership between the city and the TMA, I'm looking for your consent to be able to waive late fees and penalties against the school district. They are a necessary partner to all of us, and we would like to find a way to collect the principal for you. I just want you to know that's what my preference would be, and I'm just kind of looking for your blessing to do that anyway.
And not to interrupt, not to dominate the side, but it sounds like being able to waive interest and penalties may be a very useful negotiating
Extremely
tool for you.
useful, yes.
Okay.
So I'm happy to answer questions about it, but that's the purpose of having this agenda item, is to answer questions if you have them, and make sure Ronnie is on the same page with me that that's what we've looked into, and have your kind of approval for us to engage that process.
I just want to say I appreciate you coming and making it clear the city has unilateral right to decide, but that you're still asking for our input, because that's just great.
Thank you.
And I don't have any issues with what you have the control, but I don't have any qualms about.
Is that a motion?
Do we need a motion?
No.
We don't, because it's
Okay.
easy.
I'm mostly here, yeah.
It's just a
But
point of
I know,
information.
as an attorney who's represented people for a long time, you never just tell your client you're gonna do something.
Yeah.
And even though we're not in that type of relationship, it would be better if this
Yeah.
group
So-
had any questions they had answered, and you knew that.
If I
we
were
were-
voting, I would have no problem voting.
I make a motion of thank Steve.
Sure.
Yeah.
Second.
Taking this onerous and prickly task for us, so.
Well, I also think I want to give, we haven't begun, but I actually am just grateful to the district that they did not, their initial response was immediately, yes, let's have a conversation. I know Betsy Cooley and I know Bobby Lee have both come to city schools meetings. They are just like the post office is my least favorite place, that is my least favorite committee at times. It's a very contentious relationship between some board members and some council members. And so the small group that is convening is those of us who wish to identify a solution and hopefully generate something from that we can work towards. It is a large amount of money, and they do have some fiscal challenges, so we are going to work to come up with a flexible plan. But I'm happy knowing that the city has fulfilled its obligation to you contractually to do what it said it would do when it said it would collect money. That's my goal.
And I really appreciate it, yes.
Well, I think we have a motion and a second of support and thanks to the city for its collection efforts on behalf of the ETMA. So all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed or abstained?
And then we'll just provide, Cindy and I are providing Ronnie updates on the other accounts as we come along, and I don't know what we'll do about the post office. Their only option we have really with them is to lien their property, which sounds crazy, but we can actually do that. And if they ever chose to sell it, you would get a bunch of money back.
And I think curiously, or maybe not, but the formula of the new fees actually, they have a very, very big multiplier, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they have sort of a shockingly big fee given the size of their property, right?
The school district?
No, no,
Oh.
the post office.
Oh, right, yes, because of the access, it makes sense. I mean, the vehicle trips to the post office, I mean, I think theirs did increase
It's
from the
really,
last
you
one.
know, per square foot, it's really, really big fee
Mhm.
compared to
Right,
the typical fees in the city.
right.
All right, if you want to continue
Thank
on with
you.
your
Sure.
executive director's report.
I'll go
items.
straight up back up to item. Thank you, John, for attending the meeting today. So the air quality, some somewhat positive news. We quickly worked with the city of Emeryville. Amber Evans reached out on a potential air quality grant that we may be eligible for. Amber and I have this dialogue about 5 times per year, and most of the time the grants just aren't worth our efforts to pursue, or we're not eligible for some reason. This grant was the first one that's come across our table that we actually would be eligible for. It's for existing feeder buses from mass transit areas to areas of high density employment. Some of the stipulations of the grant was that the service could not be redundant with another transit service. So we quickly made the decision to pursue grant funding for the Watergate Express route, since that is the one demonstrator route that has no other competitive services or redundant services. We had a very quick turnaround. We had literally 10 days from start to finish with the application. If you guys have done these grant applications, they're very time consuming. You've got to get a bunch of information together, and we worked, the city quickly engaged Townsend, their consultant, to help prepare the application. And we were successful in getting the application in, and I'm not even kidding, the application was due at 4 p.m. and Amber Evans had it dropped off at 3:58 p.m. There's a picture of the camera shot of the application there. So successful submission of the application. Let's cross our fingers that we are a contender to receive this grant funding. The amount is $300,000 for 2 years, so $600,000 total. That's just a rounded number. So yeah, we'll cross our fingers that we hear back some positive news on that front.
When is the timing to?
I've actually asked Amber, she hasn't responded yet, so I'm not sure how long it'll take her to read the applications. The office trailer update. We had, I think at the last meeting I reported that we were trying to find out who pays our PG&E bill at the bus yard, and we weren't sure. We discovered that our site was not metered, and we were kind of, you know, not really sure kind of how to move forward, because we determined with a new trailer that we do need more power drawn to the site. The current power there is just not sufficient to support a double wide trailer. We also need to move forward with a double wide trailer. We're way too small right now. So we were successful working with our landlord to find out that they were in fact paying for the unmetered service, and they have taken the controls over to engage with PG&E, complete the application. We submitted the application to PG&E. And have begun dialogue with PG&E departments for having a site meeting to come out and figure out the path forward to draw power to the site. I'm hoping to hear something back within the next week or two. this has significantly stalled our project, and we can't do our building permit until we have the electrical portion identified, so we're kind of on a holding pattern until PG&E comes out to meet with us to draw the power to the, and actually, I guess, formulate the plan. Once we have the plan designed and thought for, we can go forward with our building permit, while they actually finish the project and pull the power down to the site.
How much increase in power are you requesting? How many amps? I mean, 200? I mean,
Obviously, everything is contingent upon BART approval of us using and putting a sign in the shelter. The casing that we are proposing is here and attached to the packet. And it's a 24 by 36 display that would be mounted landscape-wise, landscape. And we would install, we would put these nice signs, which this is not the right size. It'll be bigger than this, but it would be, yeah, 24 by 36, exactly. For the riders, just to kind of give them just a little snapshot of information of the Emery-Go-Round and the different service routes that we operate, and the bus stop numbers, and the real-time tracking information, and the service schedules for the different service periods. I'm welcome to, take comments now, or you can just go ahead and we can have a dialogue independently from this meeting to, refine the sign. But I would like to get your, I guess, conceptual approval of the proposed product we like to use. Bobby, I was hoping he would have a chance to speak up on this, but he did email me, and I think he was thinking that this would be attached to the pole, and he was worried that it would be damaged because it's so big.
yeah.
Or be like hazard having this big sign there, and it's not, it's gonna go in the shelter. He was proposing a transit tube, which goes on the pole. And I think with all the content we have, wrapping this around would be a little bit cumbersome to read, so I'd like a flatter surface, so people can see. We've got a lot going on with this service. We've got 3 different routes, that we're running, 3 different service schedules.
So this goes in, I'm sorry.
Oh, I was just gonna say, so you told Bobby that it's.
I did.
gonna
I
be-
clarified in the email last night.
Yeah,
and I
that's a
haven't
good
heard back.
point.
Yeah.
Made, but-
Yeah, so it'll be in the shelter. So the bus shelter has 2 glass walls.
Yeah.
We're proposing to mount it on one of the glass walls. It's an adhesive material that just attaches to it. And again, assuming BART approves, if the glass, for some reason, if we had to replace the sign or it was moved, then we would just be liable to place the glass in the shelter. It would probably not come off. So
You could,
we can probably get it off with some type of adhesive remover. I mean, we'd figure it out, but I'm just thinking ahead of BART approval of how we're gonna
Yeah.
mount this.
Explain that to me.
They've already replaced the glass once, recently.
does
because it
anyone
was
else have
shattered.
signage in there, or is it just us?
Just, so far it would just be us, yeah.
I mean, it seems fine to me. Do you need a motion on this?
No, I just really wanted more feedback, which is why it's okay to just have independent conversations about it.
So, in terms of the content, I'm just sort of curious why Zipcar sort of has a special place in our system information than anyone else who provides. I mean, there was a point in time that was sort of like the only car you could get.
Right.
But
You know what?
the world's moved way past that.
That makes sense. We've got AC Transit and we've got Zipcar. We don't have Uber, we don't have all that. So
Well,
I don't
there are
disagree.
rental car agencies in the city. I'm not, I just really wondered, this begins to be like, this is sort of a preferred provider, and so I just want to raise that issue because you're sort of advertising for one entity and not
Yeah.
others. I know bike pods are in the city and more are coming in the next weeks.
Mhm.
I do think if you're going to list any, I'd almost rather list the bike pods than the Zipcar,
Okay,
because it's a system kind of thing,
okay. Yeah, these are, honestly, didn't even look at the Zipcar. These are mats that we've been using forever, so I didn't even
I mean,
actually notice.
Is there any, does anyone have any, I would
Yeah.
agree with Jeff on this, anyone have any issues with removing the zip card?
Okay,
No, it makes sense.
we'll remove that. I think at one point, I think
I do
Emery-Go-Round
like
had
the-
a startup, right?
well,
So
we
we're
did,
supportive of it, but
we helped bring them to
those
the
days
city,
are over.
but we're so past that, it's sort of like,
Yeah, I get it, yeah, that makes sense.
Do we-
Absolutely.
I mean, just as I look at the Go Bike maps, I mean, there's a lot of them out there now, and it's just as they're being added frequently. It could get, I mean, I'm sure this is an easy thing to change out
Mhm.
regularly.
Yeah.
I do think that's a good idea, it would just require some more.
Updates, so.
well, we can decide how soon we update it, but I mean,
Yeah.
they're like 2 phase, the second phase is rolling out as we speak.
Right,
And I'm not sure the third phase, I thought was, Diana or John, you may have a better idea, I'm not, I sort of took that the second phase was what it's gonna be for a while. Is that correct?
that's kind of what.
So in our service area, I don't think there's gonna be lots of change really fast.
Right.
I wonder if you're required to use the sponsor. logo.
Ford name?
Ford,
Well, not-
yeah,
I wonder
Go
if
Ford,
you're-
right, or Ford
you know,
Bike.
if
Ford
there's
Go,
a-
it's Ford
Go,
Go Bike.
Ford Go Bike, yeah.
Well, if they won't approve it, then just say bike park or
Yeah,
something, you
yeah, right.
know,
Yeah.
use a generic.
Yeah,
I was hoping
Yeah.
we wouldn't have to, you know, you should.
yeah, I
You
don't,
just put a little bicycle on.
I would say just bike station. That way, if we have other bike stations rolling out in the city, we can put those on too. People who
John,
don't like
did you
bike
have-
or.
I just wanted to note the one thing I thought was really hard to read and it's often something people ask for, the Amtrak logo.
Oh, yeah.
I
We can
just,
enlarge that.
whether you could put a blue star instead or something, because it's
Yeah.
the only one, just so that people who, I often walk up and down Gordon Street and I meet people who are looking for that stop number 6 in the bottom right map, who are coming from the Amtrak or trying to get to the Amtrak and they're a little confused about where they are. And I just
Right.
think that people who stop at your pole, who can more clearly see Amtrak is on this thing, it's listed at the bottom of all the boxes, but if
Right.
it just has a big blue star, maybe it might be
Mhm.
easier for people.
Because we've got a nice large BART.
Yeah, Bart
Yeah.
clearly
A larger
told me where it was.
Amtrak.
That is the fourth busiest Amtrak station
Is it?
in California.
Okay,
so-
there you go.
Maybe
Okay.
it just wants to be a little bit bigger.
Yeah, we'll enlarge it. We'll try to keep their logo, but we can make that bigger.
Yeah, it might be worth a Amtrak/Capital Corridor, because that's a
Yeah.
really important line that really
Okay.
is, it's on Amtrak rail run by Amtrak, but that's the brand name of the commuter line.
And
So-
instead of the long, thin word, which is their logo, like they have an actual image, which is a blue and yellow train.
Yeah.
You might just put the blue and
Okay.
yellow train.
A big logo.
So I mean, we're first mile, last mile, so any connection, I mean,
Yeah.
maybe if we're first mile, last mile, the bike's the first 2 block, last 2 block or something, I don't know.
Right. Yeah. Okay, anything else?
The BPAC will appreciate adding
What's that?
the bike stations.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that makes sense.
We call it, not a station. Just maybe go bikes.
I'll work with you. I'll work with you. Yeah.
And I'm really okay, I mean, I don't have an issue if we want to, that's
Yeah,
what,
bike
that's
share.
what they're called.
Yeah.
I mean, it's called Ford Go Bike. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't really,
Right.
I personally don't have a big issue.
I'm just saying, you change the, they changed
Yeah,
the
right. Well, they
sponsor,
changed
and
it
now
from-
we changed their
Yeah.
trends.
Right.
So, like,
Alaska.
The good thing is that these are interchangeable, which is a positive thing.
Yeah.
We'll incorporate these in our new route guides, these
Yeah.
maps, or will just be
Yeah.
the new updated map. And these, we really wanted to make sure we can change them. So that's the purpose of having the case instead of having a hard printed
Okay.
sign, so.
Does anyone want to see a revision before this gets posted?
I would love in the bottom left map if you would actually put Hollis Street on the map.
Just label it.
It's the words, no, the words Hollis are there, there's no line.
Oh, I see.
There's no street, and Stanford and Horton
Oh,
do
I
not
see, got
connect
it,
in the
yeah.
map, so.
It just got enlarged out too far.
Yeah.
It's
So
funny,
for
those
whatever
small
reason,
streets
yeah,
are-
Stanford and Horton don't connect, there's a number of streets missing on that map.
Okay.
We strive for accuracy.
Right.
It looks like you can't walk through the middle of the town.
Yeah.
So who's actually going to be responsible for the maintenance?
The signs?
Yeah.
We will.
Okay.
Yeah, we have a graphics vendor in Emeryville, a local business that has been doing Emery-Go-Round graphics for years and years and years. So they are the ones that we are in charge of getting in the content updates, and they're the ones that actually update the materials.
What about graffiti on the case?
Graffiti is gonna be our responsibility too. Anything that we put in there is gonna be our responsibility to fix. The cases really aren't that expensive though, so that was another thing that I liked is if we had to replace the plexiglass that's in there or whatever we can, and we've got a working relationship with this company, so we get all of our route guide holders from Transit Products and, the materials that we use there, so. As opposed to the ones that you recall, we had the cases for all of our bus stop signs. They had to iron, this is very similar to that, except for we're not gonna have 50 of them throughout the city, we're only gonna have 2 to maintain, so it's gonna be better and easier to maintain for us.
So does anyone want to see a revision to this before Ronnie moves forward with it, or are we comfortable letting staff just proceed once they make these adjustments?
What about Ronnie just sending your revision and saying any comments?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You got X days.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. Ronnie, next.
Sorry. Okay. is appoint the executive director review committee. Annually, the board either conducts an executive director performance review or assigns a subcommittee. In the past, there's always the subcommittee of the board handle the performance review. So I'd just like to know if the board would want to just have the performance review in the meeting, or if you want to appoint a subcommittee to do that.
Anyone have a preference?
Wasn't there a subcommittee last time?
That's how we usually do it.
Yeah.
I think that's a
That
winning
seems fair.
Yeah.
approach.
How many people have been on it in the past? I don't remember. 2 or
Three.
3.
Mhm.
Any volunteers?
What does it do? How long can we procrastinate?
Well, it's timed up with our contract
Contract, yeah.
renewal, which is, in December usually. So it's good to have the, performance
How about-
review conducted
Who
beforehand.
was on the last committee?
You, Jeff, and Betsy. Is that right?
And I move that they.
We really impressed you.
I make a motion.
Yourself.
Committee before.
Yeah, it was a conference call.
We could even tag.
No judgment over here, people.
The last, and then we could adjourn the meeting.
Oh, yeah, that's a
15
good
minutes
idea.
after the October meeting. I mean, it's not gonna take.
That's a
Yeah.
good
And then
idea.
people would be here. I mean, I would be happy to sit on it and add an extra 2 minutes on to the end of the next meeting.
Okay.
If anyone else wants to join me.
I'll-
Nate, you loved it.
I got
Great.
I must have.
Or
And I'll-
Betsy or Andrew, you guys want to?
I'll be on
All right.
it.
You can have 4 people, right? That's-
Yeah, as long as you don't
And
have,
Nate works
you
here, he
can't have
doesn't have to
5.
go anywhere.
You
You're
better
looking somewhere.
impress Nate more than I did, so he remembers that you were
Okay,
here.
so
So
Ronnie-
Matt, you're the one that's on it too? Did you put your hand up?
I didn't, I was gonna
Oh,
offer
okay.
another
Yeah.
chance.
So
I
I
have
said,
the-
let's say,
Tim,
let's
Betsy,
But I will do
Andrew.
it if you.
3, okay.
And why don't we schedule it for immediately following the adjournment of next month's
Okay.
board meeting? All right, any suggestions or requests from board members? No?
Just one more comment. I heard through Bobby that there were discussions, and I've actually been talking to Cindy about this as well, about the bike ped committee proposing a second lane on the 40th Street Shellmound Bridge.
Yeah.
And I think it would be a good opportunity to try to advocate for some bus access through there. We've talked before about bus-only lanes when we had a traffic mitigation study that was done by the consultant of the cities. One of the items was consider bus-only lanes during peak periods of high peak traffic.
Well, particularly we're heading into the holiday season.
Again,
Last
exactly.
year, we were looking at, what, 2-hour
Mhm.
at times?
Right, exactly. So we've always, the board, typically has, provided, some feedback to the city that we would love to see some more, transit mobility, studies done to help move Emery-Go-Round through. We know we've had, really bad performance issues related to traffic, and I think it's time to start kind of looking forward to the future and what Emery-Go-Round's gonna look like, through the city as, traffic increases. And with it starting to look at transit mobility. And I know this bridge is one of them. Bobby made a suggestion, he wanted me, to share it with me, that maybe we look at maybe a formal kind of request that they look at, instead of just having a traffic lane added, look at maybe having bus queue jump lanes.
John, did you have something you wanted to?
Yeah, and maybe Diana, you could be the messenger for this item. Council member Medina and I had a meeting because this was on the BPAC meeting very late as an agenda item. I will share the BPAC did not respond positively to this item. It's a tension because I kind of partner in an ad hoc way with Councilmember Medina. I'm more of the transit member of the council and focused on that. She's been kind of leading us on the bike ped improvement things, and so we're trying to partner on those things so that we can do both. And so it will come back in October or November to the BPAC, and I would really encourage this group to designate someone perhaps to go and meet with Andrew Clow, who's the interim public works director. Andrew did propose a second lane. He did talk about a transit-only lane during peak hours and the time period, but there were a number of, he had to leave the meeting due to a family issue, and I think it was Ryan who ended up sitting in for him at that meeting. Yeah, it didn't get presented probably the way it would have been better received. It was pretty, Ryan, what's Ryan's last name, Donald?
O'Connell.
O'Connell, thank you. He stepped in and he was not supposed to be the presenter, and so he was kind of given like the 30-second cliff notes of what to say, which is never a good idea at BPAC, and so they chewed him up pretty good, and so Allie, Medina, and I met with Andrew and Carolyn to discuss how to resolve this so we can do these things, find a compromise on this. And I will just let you know, a lot of BPAC members feel that is an extremely dangerous part of the bridge, that people drive too fast and that there are tire marks along the curbs on the far side of the bridge because cars go too far and slide and hit. And so they're really worried about losing the buffer space. I think there are probably mitigations that could be created to have the two modals work there. But I think your best effort, because I do think this is an important issue, is going to be to designate someone to have a very open conversation with our interim public works director or Diane if that's appropriate. Yeah, and I think then being prepared to go to that meeting, not to try to convince them, but mostly to listen, because I think what's likely to happen is that due to the fact that they responded as they did, Andrew does not want to restripe the bridge. And then that part of Shell Mound is part of our slurry seal project, and he does not want to have to grind out stripes if it's ultimately taken away. So it's potentially going to delay all of the repaving until March, when the next best weather would be, because there's a delay. You can't do it in the winter time. So it's highly unlikely that there will be
When's the October BPAC?
The first Monday of the month.
First Monday, is it first? Yeah, I know it's a Monday.
We're always
Monday unless it's a holiday.
Unless it's a holiday, so October, the first Monday of October, if it's on the October one, I can't remember if he's gonna put it on October or November. So maybe Diana can follow back up with you just about which one he's gonna put it on, but I do encourage you to go and attend, if you can send a couple people to listen and participate, because I don't think we're gonna decide it then. What they're gonna ask them to do is make a recommendation to the council about how to provide for both or mitigate that issue, and then the council will ultimately review. It'll go to transportation committee, and then it will come to us. So there will be a couple times to provide your input. It might just be worth going to listen to them.
Yeah, okay.
Well, I just wanted to say, there's a longtime former member of the BPAC, that corner is something that has been talked about at length over many years, and the BPAC fought really hard to have a single traffic lane and the buffer. So just so
Let me
you're
ask,
warned.
is there another bridge plan to do a pedestrian bridge over Bay Street area, over the tracks into the Horton?
Yeah.
So right behind us over here where Ohlone Way is,
Right.
that space there, we, knock on wood, we intend to, we're very close to having the contracts finished with the railroad. We have some easement air rights we have to deal with. We hope to break ground on a bike pedestrian bridge that will connect the intersection of 53rd and Horton Street, come across and land into Bay Street, yes.
Okay. Would that maybe alleviate the need of bicyclists to use the 40th corridor? Would that
They will
leave some of that?
they will tell you that all corridors should be available to bicycles at all times.
I just wanted to add, I think there's going to be another opportunity for this group to engage with the city on sort of long-range thinking, and the city's just commencing an effort to study parking policies and so forth in the city. And everywhere there's some really major transit corridors, I mean major in Emeryville terms, meaning important because nothing's very big, that have parking on them. And you know, in other cities they take parking away during peak hours and other things. And I don't know what works and what makes sense, but I think that parking study gives you the opportunity to say, are there better uses of that resource for the bigger good? And so I think we'll want to engage in that as it proceeds.
And yes, and so Councilmember Medina and I will be kicking off that item December or January, and the timeline we've agreed to with staff tentatively is that we will study it for about 4 months. We'll have several study sessions, and we would obviously want your input on places where a stop could be improved, et cetera, or the traffic flow is too slow here. So to his point, maybe there's a section where there is no parking. We are gonna obviously be pairing that with, is there an opportunity to create protected bike spaces? There are a handful of areas in town where there are a higher rate of bike car incidents, and so we're gonna look at that. And then finally, the goal is to create a variated street parking program to actually, we have a lot of people who, you might know this, who drive from Berkeley, park here, and then take the F bus. My neighborhood is full at 6 in the morning with cars. I live in the Park Avenue district. People get off, park their car literally in front of my house, and walk over and stand at the bus station, catch the last bus that leaves the bus stop that goes to San Francisco. We're a free parking lot right now, and that contributes to our traffic problems for your service delivery and things like that. And so the goal would be, Ally is going to be working predominantly on areas that would be metered for certain times of the day to discourage or at least generate revenue off of parking needs. And then I'm going to be working on a resident and local business plan for existing business employees and residents who will also have parking needs so that we can diminish the use of the city streets as a parking lot. That's the plan. And the goal is to implement some portion of it beginning in July of next year. That's an ambitious timeline, I will tell you that. But staff, I'm actually impressed, staff proposed that timeline, so.
Well, I would say, Diana, if you could let us just correspond with Ronnie about if this is on the October BPAC agenda, I think it'd be good. We could find someone to go around and good at that. And then we can just continue to track it. I think it would be a good agenda item over the next coming months to put together some sort of subcommittee to discuss what we think would be valuable input, how we can best provide input to the city as they start to discuss this issue. Anything else? Next meeting will be October 19th here, 9 o'clock, and the executive directors.
All right,
And if nothing else, I will adjourn the meeting.
thank you.
Thank you all.